the pledge, that's,
Yeah.
Okay. Matt, will you please lead us in the pledge?
Certainly. Thank you. All right. Please stand. Right hand over your heart. Ready to begin. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under the indivisible.
Yeah, thank you. We'll move on to the roll call.
Thank you, Mr. President. Division 7, Gary Van Dam.
Here.
Division 6, Audrey Miller.
Here.
Division 5, Robert Harris. Division 2, Keith Dias.
Here.
Division 1, Drew Mercy.
Here.
Division 3, Frank Donato.
Here.
Division 4, George Lane.
Here.
General Manager Mootson.
Here.
General Counsel Markman.
Here.
And Holly Hughes present.
Yes, thank you. Move on to item number 4, voluntary public roll call. And for those that have joined in and are listening to the meeting, we would like to hear who's with us. And now's the time to identify yourself.
John Eucasted, AV Mutual Group.
John, welcome.
Thank you.
Roush, Antelope Valley Resource Conservation District.
Yeah, welcome. Glad you're with us.
Hi, George. This is John Joyce from the Roseman News.
John Royce, glad to hear from you.
White Fence 3, Jack Safe.
Palmdale Water District.
Every time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
White Fence 3, Jack Cephas.
Jack, good to hear from you.
Good evening.
Okay, well, thank you. And that'll move on to item number 5, public comments. And if there's any item on the agenda that there's any item that's not on the agenda you'd like to address the board, now's the time to do so. We'll move on to item number 6, adoption of agenda. Roll call or board orders.
Mr. President, I'll move on 6A1, adoption of the agenda.
Second. We have a motion and a second. If there's no further comments, Madam Secretary, we could have our roll call.
Gary Van Dam.
Yes.
Audrey Miller.
Yes.
Robert Harris is not present this evening. Keith Dias.
Yes.
Drew Mercy.
Yes.
Frank Donato.
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried. Okay, that'll bring us to item number our consent calendar. Item number 7A1, approve the minutes of the regular board meeting of February 13th, 2024. And I think we've all had a chance to look at the agenda in this minute. So if there's no further questions, the motion would be in order.
Mr. President, I'll move on 7A1.
Any motion from Director Miller?
I'll second. This is Keith.
In a second from Director Dias. If there's no further questions, Madam Secretary?
Gary Van Dam.
Yes.
Audrey Miller.
Yes.
Keith Dias.
Yes.
Drew Mercy.
Yes.
Frank Donato. George Lane.
Yes. Motion carried. Okay, that brings us down to item number 8. It'll be a little more lengthy. Our Finance Committee. And Director Donato is chairman of that, so we'll turn it over to Director Donato.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. Okay, we're item 8A1, the consider possible action to accept and file the check registry list for the period of February 1st through the 14th of 24.
Good evening. I can do a little intro on this item as well. So included in your board packet on page 16 is the checklist for the period that Vice President Donato mentioned. And we went through this as typical at the Finance Committee in detail. A couple of highlights. On page 1, We have a monthly payment to Department of Water Resources. This is associated with our statement of charges that we collect as part of our tax roll. It's just under $1.9 million. We also talked a little bit about the payment on page 18 in the amount of $80,000 to the Sites Reservoir project. And Avek has an agreement with Tejon Ranch for participation in that project. So all the costs that the agency incurs associated with the Sites Reservoir is reimbursed by Tejon Ranch. So that $80,000 will be paid for by Tejon Ranch. Talked about a few other items, but that was mainly the highlights of the Finance Committee as far as the checklist. So be happy to answer any other questions that the directors may have on the checklist.
Yeah, if anybody has any question, take as much time as you need, but if not, a motion would be in order.
Okay, I move on board order 881.
Director Donato, we have a motion?
Mr.
This
President.
is Drew, I'll second.
In a second by Director Mercy. Okay, Madam Secretary, if we could have a roll call.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes. Motion carried. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, that brings us to 882. Consider possible action to accept and file the treasurer's report for the period ending January 31st, 2024.
Good evening, directors. This is the treasurer's report for January. An average yield to maturity for the total portfolio for January was 4.243%, which was up 0.175% from December. Average days to maturity for the total portfolio was 204 days, or approximately 7 months. And total cash and investments at January 31st was $131.4 million, which was down $4.3 million from December. And that was due to the large DWR payment in January. And just to note, on Thursday, the Finance Committee requested that we look into a sweep account with Wells Fargo for our checking. We have a call with them tomorrow, so we'll be reporting back with more info on that. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions or comments? Teresa, actually, you do a good job. It looks good.
Thank you.
It hasn't always been that way, so
Thank
that's
you.
great.
Great, yeah. Thank you. Okay, I'll move on board order then. 882 that we accept the treasurer's report.
Yeah, we have a motion by Director Donato.
Director Miller, second.
Director Miller, we have our second. And there's no further any questions, Madam Secretary.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried.
Okay, it brings us to 883. We're going to review recommendations. Resolution R24-03, authorizing the Antelope Valley Current Water Agency to provide water quality laboratory testing services to the state of California, the state California Department of Water Resources, and our laboratory manager, Wade, is going to give us a report.
Good evening, board members. So this resolution R2403 is similar to our current resolution we have with DWR, with the addition of the line in the third paragraph. Authorization of any and all amendments will be made by Antelope Valley East Kern Water Agency. And this language was requested by the Department of Water Resources due to our price increase we had last year, as our original resolution didn't specify how rates could be adjusted.
that it?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, well, I got a couple of things. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit.
Okay.
Let's talk about, we talked about it in finance regarding, they accepted our fee chart. That was the thing.
Mhm.
And we included a cost limit in that fee chart year over year, correct?
Yes. So we have a contract with them that began in 2021, and it currently says based on the attached rate sheet. And on the rate sheet, it says with 60-day advance notice, fees can change. So the legal department for DWR, once we raised the fees, they wanted it that language actually included in the resolution and not on an attachment.
I mean, did they, yeah.
I spoke with one of their representatives, and they just said they're spending the government's money, so they want all their bases covered.
They have no problem raising the rates that cost the state on other things.
Yeah, no.
And they don't ask a resolution either.
Yeah. And our fees are way lower than theirs.
Okay. There's no questions from the board. I'll go ahead and move on, 883, that we approve the resolution to accept the contract between the state Department of Water Resources and AVAC.
Okay, we have a motion by Director Donato for
Second.
83 and a second by Director Van Dam. There's no further questions. Madam Secretary?
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried. Had one question.
Yes.
Is our customers' demand for testing, is that remaining pretty static, is it increasing or decreasing or?
It's remaining the same. We're some smaller water systems or like water haulers are closing their businesses, but also other places are required to do more testing. So it's pretty much staying the same.
When they close their business, does somebody else take over the?
We haven't really seen that. They're just the requirements, I guess, are a little more difficult than they have been in the past, and so it's hard to keep up with.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, that brings us now to 884. Consider possible action on approving a purchase order with International Water Springs for the rebuild of the 3 Quartz Hill Water Treatment Plant Moss Springs, and not to exceed $112,000. And our operations manager, John Bozegan, will give us a report.
Thank you. Okay, good evening. So last board meeting, I reminded the board, or I made you aware that we were going to rebuild the moss screens at Quartz Hill while the plant was offline. Perfect time to do it. They've been rebuilt. They've been put back in place. They're working great. Should get a few more years out of them without having to do a major rebuild. We did get the invoice. It was for almost $110,000. So we'd ask the board to approve a not to exceed amount in case something comes in afterwards of $112,000. International Water Screens.
It?
It's not too exciting, but that's it.
Okay.
Okay. Well, somebody must be a good movie coming on at 9 o'clock or something.
I do have a question.
Sure.
In the memo here, the agenda memo, it says the total cost for the project is $118,000, but we
Right.
didn't want it to exceed 112.
Well, what we did, the project consists of not just rebuilding the screens, but having somebody come and remove them, haul them to the facility to be rebuilt and put them back. So we budgeted $118,000 total to do this. The cost was $110 roughly for the rebuild, and then we spent about $6,000 for the actual R&R of the screens and hauling them. So the total budget included all of that.
Thank you.
For 112.
The 112 is just for international water screens.
Yeah.
but we stayed within budget for the project, the capital budget that was approved.
How long will those last for, John?
Well, the screens themselves will last for many years, but depending on how much, if the allocation is high, we flow more water through Quartz Hill and less through SNP to LA County. So if we have high allocation, they should go at least 3 years, maybe 4, before they need another major rebuild. But every year we do replace some of the wear parts just to make sure we don't have a massive problem on our hands. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Thanks, John.
The motion would be in order for
I'll move.
8A4.
Yeah, I'll move on to A4 that we approve not to exceed $112,000 for the monsters.
We have a motion by Director Donato, and we have a second by
I'll second. It's Keith.
Director Dias. If there's no further questions, Madam Secretary?
Barry Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes,
George Lane.
Yes. Motion carried.
Thank you.
that concludes my report on finance.
Yeah, well, thank you, Director. Next item, we move on to the water master and groundwater. In Frank Donato, give me that report also.
Yeah, I'm going to step in for Rob. So 8B1, we're considering possible action on the 2024 replacement water assessment. And Matt's going to give us an overview on that.
All right. Thank you, Director Donato. Good evening again. So included on your board packet on page 48 is a brief memo, both from Avek and then the memo from the Antelope Valley State Water Contractors Association, who actually sets this rate. So a little bit of background. I think we all know that the judgment with the Antelope Valley Water Master and the groundwater adjudication requires that producers that pump more than their production right, they have to replace that water to the basin. So the process that we've established here is the producers can pay a replacement water assessment to the water master, and AVAC, Palmdale Water District, or Little Rock Creek Irrigation District provides that water to the basin as replacement. So several years ago, the Antelope Valley State Water Contractors Association contracted with Raftellus to develop a rate structure that included replacement water costs for both inside the association boundary and outside the association boundary. And that has to do with the property taxes that are collected from property owners that go towards the cost of the state water project. So you'll see in a minute, the proposed rate includes both inside and outside. And the main difference with the higher rate is includes the back taxes that those property owners have not paid over the years. So we've utilized the same methodology as prior years, and staff has updated the financial model that Raftellus developed to propose a new replacement water assessment rate for 2024. And this is on a calendar year basis. So on this slide, you'll see it at the top in bold, what the proposed rates are for both inside and outside the association boundaries. Inside boundaries is $607 per acre foot. Outside is $1,190 per acre foot. Down below, you can see the historical cost. So the 2023 rates were $563 per acre foot for inside the boundary and $1,119 for outside. So it's roughly a 7.5% increase from 2023 rates to the proposed 2024 rates. As I mentioned, it's in line with the financial model that Raftellus developed, and it's working out great. Over the years, the advisory committee and water master board has supported that methodology. Last week, there was an advisory committee meeting, and they reviewed this item, and everybody voted in favor of supporting this new rate. This this methodology also, if you remember, stood up to a court challenge by Phelan Pinion Hills back when they were challenging their rate for replacement water assessments. And the judge supported the methodology that we're using today. So it should give us comfort that the process has been working.
You know, you might have said it, but that's incredible because a couple things. I want to give Avek pat on the back for bringing Rappakellis in. Well, you know, at the beginning, to get this thing, you know, put together. But it is actually with the court, and we use the court versus. That's very important. So if anybody challenges what we're doing, we're using the report that basically the court's approved as well.
Yeah.
As a consultant. And some of the newer directors probably didn't know this, but when we interviewed them originally, they were highly recommended. Metropolitan used them, and I don't know how many other water agencies used them. And the job is to keep you in the black.
Yeah.
And that's basically what it comes down to. Yeah. So that's interesting.
Yep. So this item will be on the agenda tomorrow for the Antelope Valley Water Master to consider. I thought it'd be good that we individually support this item as an AVAC board so that myself represent AVAC tomorrow since Rob Paris is out of town. I have clear direction that we are supportive of this rate.
Man, how does this compare with the other retail water agencies like Courtsdale, Lancaster, and Bozeman?
How does the rate compare?
You probably don't know those off the tip of your tongue. But.
I don't. So this, just a reminder, this rate is to cover AVAC's cost associated with providing replacement water to the basin. So it includes the state water project cost, all of AVAC's admin costs, our banking costs, delivery or pumping costs. So that's primarily what this rate covers. And then it also includes the one-time 10% loss that we take a hit on with the recharge process. So for every acre foot that we provide to the water master in replacement water, we have to deliver 1.1 acre feet. So this cost includes that 10% loss.
And that replacement cost is strictly raw water that comes out of the aqueduct. It's not treated.
Correct.
Mr. President, I have a question for Matt.
Yes.
So can you clarify for the public, because this is AVSWCA boundaries for inside, can you tell them who that is and whose boundaries you're talking about?
Yeah, that's a good question. So that includes collectively AVAC's boundaries, Palmdale Water District's boundary, and Little Rock Creek Irrigation District. So that collective boundary of all three agencies is the association boundary.
So then if they're outside of that, they're going to be subject to the higher rate.
Correct.
Yep.
So if they're not in the AVAC boundaries, like Edwards Air Force Base, they got to pick up the.
Or like BMN.
Or like out in Phelan,
Exactly.
yeah, or what's the other area up there? Juniper Hills. Is the admin staff put together a request for qualifications to provide professional administrative services to the water master. And this is in hopes of finding a outside firm or individual to replace the interim AVAC staff performing this task for the water master. So they worked on that RFQ in January, laid out the process that they're recommending to go through to the water master board at the January meeting. They distributed a draft RFQ to the advisory committee and the water master board for review. The hope tomorrow is to get input from the water master board regarding the RFQ and the process laid out. The advisory committee did meet on this item last week, and they provided some comments and feedback on the draft RFQ. And the hope is in March at the Water Master meeting, the Water Master staff will bring back a final RFQ to the board for consideration before going out to the public. So tomorrow there's no action item. It's just seeking feedback from the board members and the public on the draft RFQ. So I think we just wait to see what that feedback looks like, and we will have time to respond before action is taken in March.
Now, will that meter take our staff completely out or just in a portion?
We don't know exactly how that will look. It's being written to completely replace AVAC staff with an outside firm, but that could evolve and develop as we go through the process. The next item that the Water Master Board is going to talk about is authorization to seek an amendment with Todd Groundwater, who, as you know, has been serving as Water Master Engineer since 2017 for the Water Master. So they've, in my opinion, Todd has done a pretty good job over the years. Their current contract expires at the end of 2024. So the Water Master staff is going to be seeking authorization to work with Todd Groundwater and negotiate a scope and fee for the next, is it 3 years, Peter?
Yes.
For the next 3 years. You know, I don't see any reason to switch engineers at this point. We're going to be busy over the next year working through the admin staff issue. And as I said, everybody seems to be pretty satisfied with the service that Todd Groundwater is providing. So my recommendation is that the AVAC board support the decision or direction to authorize the admin staff to negotiate with Todd Groundwater for another 3-year amendment.
Yeah, you're gonna do a better job this time around than the consultants.
Yeah.
They're gonna come back. They're not gonna come back, you know, after 6 months and say, you don't want them anymore.
Yeah, well, this is for, I agree, but this is for the Water Master engineer.
No, ma'am, we show a board order. Is that necessary?
No, just as long as we have consensus
Yeah,
that's
So Matt, real quick, we hired them in 2017.
correct.
No, they've been with us the whole time. We've been giving them 3-year extensions along the way.
I don't think it was 3 years at the beginning. It was maybe a couple years at the early years, and then the latest one was a 3-year amendment.
Okay.
Yeah, and like I said, that expires at the end of 2024.
Right, so I agree with Matt on that. I think we've got a full plate with, replace Hallmark.
Yeah.
And I think groundwater, Todd's been doing a fairly good job.
Yeah.
So,
But they're gonna want the business.
Yeah.
right.
And the work now is a lot easier than it was when they first started.
Exactly. Yeah, they've got a pretty good process going.
Have they talked about their rates, what they're going to do?
That's what the admin staff's going to negotiate with them, is determine what the scope of work is and the rates for the fee.
So once that happens, does that go to the advisory for that next?
Yeah, that would first go to the advisory and then come back to the board.
They agree, then it comes back to us.
Correct.
So we're just,
So it sounds like we have a consensus on that item.
Yes.
Also on the agenda for tomorrow, we have a few applications. We have 2 new production applications. Both of them are single-family residences. Both are requesting 1 acre foot per year of production. Advisory committee is supportive of both of those applications. Down below, you can see we have 5 different transfers. These are all one-time temporary transfers of carryover water between parties to the judgment. We went through each of these at the advisory committee, and the advisory committee is supportive of all 5 applications. So I think as long as nobody has any objections to this, I will continue to support these items tomorrow. And then the last item is we talked about this a little bit at the committee last week, the AVEC committee of the Water Master. But there's one non-production well, which is categorized as monitoring well for Mission Linen Supply. As you know, they're a commercial supplier of uniforms and, industrial type supplies for different agencies and companies here in the Valley. Mm-hmm. And they're a dry cleaning facility that washes various material that's contaminated, just shop towels and mechanic uniforms. The groundwater near their site on Avenue I and Sierra Highway has been contaminated with some PCE. I'm not going to try to pronounce that word before PCE. You need to know, we'll have Jordan come up and pronounce that. But it's found in degreasers and WD-40. And Lahontan Regional Water Quality Control Board issued an open site assessment plan back in 2011 and ordered some remediation of the contaminated groundwater or soil. So this non-production well will be used to support Mission Linen's approved corrective action plan from late 2023 with Lahontan Regional Water Quality Control Board to remove the contaminants from the soil. So the well will extract approximately 20,000 gallons and less than 0.25 acre feet per year, which is the criteria for a monitoring well. So hopefully, Director Donato, that answers some of your questions that we talked about last week.
You forgot the garden hose that went out the back there.
Yeah. So the advisory committee is also supportive of this application. So I will support this tomorrow, unless anybody has any objection.
I just have a comment. So this is pretty serious stuff. I mean, today's Clean Water Act and everything else, they're worried about going over 10 parts per million of nitrates. I mean, obviously, kind of messed up compared to this.
Exactly.
So the question is, what if they can't fix it?
Well, I think this is the first part of remediating that. They're going to put this monitoring well in, pull some samples, and make sure that they're getting this under control as part of the cleanup. All right.
They don't know when this happened, right? Or has it been happening?
Yeah, I don't know. Was that in any of the documentation, Abel?
No, the consultant did say that they thought it was legal in pipe.
Oh.
There was leaking water, the ground over time.
Okay. That would be better than a garden hose during to the bed.
But you can see the site assessment plan goes back, 13 years ago, 2011.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you good. And I think that was about it. So sounds like I have direction for tomorrow's Water Master meeting, unless anybody has any comments or questions.
Yeah, just a comment, man. I think the staff was in very well, kind of the last minute stepping in. Looks like you're doing a very good job. So
yeah,
so I think all the staff, they need to be thanked.
I agree. Yeah, most of that staff is here this evening, so thank them.
Good job.
Okay, if there's nothing further, that'll bring us on to item number C, planning Illinois State Water Contractors. Keith, you're with us?
Yes, I am. This is item 8C1, consideration and possible action on MOU between Avek, Palmdale Water District, and Little Rock Creek Irrigation District for the Little Rock Creek Recharge Project. And I believe Tom has a report. Is that correct?
That's correct. Thank you, Director Denias. You want the clicker, Tom?
Thank you, Director Dias. Good evening, members of the board. I have two items to report on coming from the Planning and AV State Water Contractors Committee meeting we had last Friday. The first item is item 8C1, and I'll give you a little bit of background on this. This is the Little Rock Creek Recharge Project. In June of last year, the AVEC board approved an agreement between AVEC, Palmdale Water District, and Little Rock Creek Irrigation District, and the association as a whole for the Little Rock Creek Recharge Project. The agreement enabled AVEC and Palmdale Water District to recharge water directly into the creek area using Little Rock Irrigation District's statewide project turnout that's currently located there. And that's the point of delivery for the two contractors, Supply, AVEC, and Palmdale Water District. So the agreement was set up to also compensate LCID for the use of their turnout for the project. We successfully recharged quite a bit of water. As you know, we had 100% allocation last year. We started the recharge there shortly after the MOU was agreed upon, and then we moved through the rest of the year, and we were able to recharge almost 10,000 acre feet. So we got over 9,500 acre feet total recharged through the project. The future project now requires a new memorandum of understanding, and that's what's being presented tonight. So for the parties to continue to recharge and collaborate in that way, this new MOU has been developed between the same parties as last year. So as in 2023, the primary goal of the MOU and the recharge project is to use the local surface water in the best way we can and to recharge it and basically to supply some additional surplus water for future dry years. So that we took opportunity, we capitalized on that opportunity with the 100% year, and we were able to move forward and do some groundwater recharge and storage.
John, one question. If we get the appropriate paperwork with the water master, so that's tracked?
Yeah, we're actually working on that now to work with the water master for the.
But what we've already recharged, they're aware of that, and we get credit for that.
Yeah, that's what we're working on now too, because it's to be done by April of this year to complete the project.
I can jump in there real quick, Tom. I think President Lane, your question is, what is the water master aware of the current water that we've recharged in 2023?
Yes.
They are aware. We've been in correspondence with them, and that will show up on our annual report with the water master, and they're satisfied.
Yeah, that was presented. I believe that was presented to them in 2023, right, last year before we started the project. So this new MOU is based on the 2023 document, same document. It is a term of 10 years after execution, and it can be terminated by anybody at any time with other notice to the parties. And as it is based on that agreement, it has also been reviewed by the agency council, the new MOU agreement. Just in summary of the responsibilities that are laid out in the MOU, AVEC and Palmdale Water District, they are the rechargers within the project, so they will continue to use the Little Rock Creek statewide project turnout, and they'll continue to recharge there. The recharge will be split annually in the project, the capacity. Right now, we're estimating a total capacity of about 15,000 acre feet per year, so I give about up to 7,500 acre feet per agency. So if both parties decide to recharge in the project, then that's what they'd be able to recharge up to 7,500. Any unused capacity, if that comes about, will in the agreement it spells out that the parties will discuss that amongst themselves to determine what's to be used in the capacity. Also, I mentioned compensating LCID. They will be compensated similar to the 2023. They'll be compensated by transferring stored imported water at a rate of 10% or 0.1 acre feet per acre foot recharge. So we'll split the cost too between AVEC and PWD. Will split any costs as far as materials related to the project, implementing it and maintaining it.
So they're receiving not a cash payment, they're receiving a credit.
Yeah, they receive credit. They receive 10% of the water that's recharged.
What is that worth?
Well, for example, 10,000 acre feet, they would take, approximately the 1,000 acre feet of that, and dollar amount on that would be whatever that we pay for the water to be recharged and brought in, and then they pay for any cost to work with the water master to have it transferred over, so to them. So that would be transferred through the water master We would transfer imported water.
Maybe I can jump in here, Tom. So in water cost, currently it costs AVAC about $250 per acre foot to deliver water through the state water project. So under this term, transferring 0.1 or 10% for every acre foot delivered, it would cost us about $25 per acre foot.
Gotcha. Yeah, which would cover the state water project cost, that 10% of the state water project cost. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, well, I have one question, either you or Matt. Matt, it might be better answered by you. In this recharge, project, if we have water to recharge this year, in a limited amount of water, are we setting priorities where it's going to be delivered?
That's a really good question. So, this would not be a priority location. So the priority would be AVAC's banking facilities first, such as West Side Water Bank or East Side Water Bank. And then we would look to locations outside that. Mm-hmm. I would guess even Upper Amargosa is a higher priority than Low Rock Creek recharge. So this would, as Tom mentioned, this was used in 2023 because we had 100% allocation and we're receiving Article 21 water. So we had more water than we had locations for. So I wouldn't envision this project being used on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, and the governor did, reach out to state water contractors, through the Department of Water Resources and asked them to find some creative ways of moving water. And this was one of the solutions we had in 2023. So continuing on, AVEC and Palmdale Water District have those responsibilities there. Little Rock is responsible for all the maintenance, all the operation, repairs, restoration, anything that relates to the actual operation of the project and continued operation. But we've also asked them to maintain and record and report all of the flows that come out of the turnout into the creek. The monthly deliveries, they report that to all the partners. Also, they monitor and report on the creek itself, like how the project is affecting the creek and how the creek flows are affecting the project. So they monitor all of that on a regular basis. Continuing with the responsibilities, all the parties are responsible to cooperate with the Department of Water Resources in developing state water project change in point and deliveries, we call them, and that's what we did in 2023. We developed those agreements. Also, they are to work with the water master to enter into any storage agreements that are required. They will pay, just like we do regularly, we would pay all of our own related state water project costs and all the fixed costs. We are to comply with all environmental, all regulatory requirements required by the project, also cooperating with the water master in the same way to ensure compliance with judgment, rules, and regulations, CEQA. We have to make sure that we're all complying with that, not only through our regular sources through CEQA, but also with the water master. Make sure the water master realizes that we're, complying with CEQA.
I have a question. Can you go back to the slide, please?
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on pay all their own related state water project variable and fixed costs? Like, the people that are, who's paying for that? Is that when you're talking about the people, who are you talking about?
Yeah, it'd be all the parties. For example, if AVEC delivers into any site, any turnout, we pay our standard, state water project variable costs and our capital.
We're not going to subsidize anybody else.
No, that's why it says their own. Yeah. Okay. So it's only related. And the reason why we say all parties, because if, for example, one of the parties did not want to use, the turnout and Little Rock Creek wanted to recharge a little bit, they'd have the ability to do that, but they would pay their own costs, to move that water. So the recommendation coming out of the Planning and AV State Water Contractors Committee was to approval of the Memorandum of Water Service Agreement between Little Rock Creek and AVEC, Palmdale Water District, and the association. Continue in the project.
Let's say something goes wrong with the turnout.
Mm-hmm.
and there's work to be done. Who's paying for that?
If it's related to the project, then the partners would discuss that. If it's related to Little Rock's, specifically just their turnout, that would be their responsibility to work with the Department of Water Resources.
But we're taking water out of that turnout.
Yeah.
So there is no reimbursement to Little Rock for if there's a problem with the turnout?
With the turnout itself, there would not be any reimbursement unless it impacted the project to the point where the partners would have to meet and say, you know, say we had another 100% year and we said we wanted to recharge and yet there was an issue with the turnout, we would work with Little Rock Creek. But did not happen in 2023. There was very minimal cost in getting the project up and running in 2023. It was all they had to put in literally was a 24-inch drain pipe. That was it. That's all they put in to get the project up and running. So very, very low cost involved in that. If you had a bigger issue on the turnout, as you mentioned, yeah.
What if the valve sticks? Okay, that's what I'm saying. You know,
yeah.
Like, you know, I mean, most likely it's not, but if it sticks and we're ready to run water through it, who fixes it?
Yeah, those types of things have happened because, you know, this turnout isn't used every year, right? So yeah, Little Rock Creek covers the cost of the turnout itself. Yeah, if it impacts the project, you know, in the sense of anything past that turnout point, yeah, then we would again get together and discuss that.
Who's we?
The partners, Avek, Palmdale Water District, and Little Rock Creek.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Good report.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Then we have 8C1, memorandum of understanding between the various water agency. And so, if the board's in support of this, a motion would be in order.
This is Keith. I'll make a motion that we approve the memorandum of understanding between Little Rock Creek Irrigation District, Avek, Palmdale Water District, and the Antelope Valley State Water Contractors Association for continuation of the Little Rock Creek Recharge Project.
We have a motion by Director Dias.
Second.
We had a second by
Van Dam.
Director Van Dam. If there's no further any questions or comments, Madam Secretary.
Gary Van Dam.
Yes.
Paul Miller. Keith Dias.
Yes.
Drew Mercy.
Yes.
Frank Donato.
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes. Motion carries. Yeah, thank you much. Yeah. That brings us down to 8C2.
I can go ahead and start on this. This is also related to an item coming out of the Planning Committee. It's consideration and possible action on reassignment of water service agreement from older landowners to some new landowners. A little bit of background on the project. Just about 2 weeks ago on February 8th, property changed owners from a longtime customer, Terry Milford, to John and Crean Graves. And land is currently being served by Avek Water. And its new owners would like to continue that service without interruption. And so the previous and current landowners have executed the required documents needed to get this process started. And so that includes an assignment of water service agreement, which is now presented to the board for approval, along with, in addition to the water service agreement itself, is what we call a memorandum of water service agreement. You may recall that. It's been a while since we've done one of these. So the memorandum of water service agreement is basically an attachment to the water service agreement, and it puts a lien on the property, and it protects the agency against non-payment for water. So this would be something that we would execute with the individual new owners of the property. I would like to mention the committee did discuss about on the assignment of water service agreement, putting a statement on there that would make sure that the new customers are aware that they're not allowed to move water off of their property to serve other neighbors. So we did add that to the assignment of water service agreement form, which is signed by all parties, signed by the old owners, signed by the new owners, and by Avek. And so, again, that along with this memorandum water service agreement would be the two documents that would be executed by the agency for transferring this over, or reassigning this water service agreement to the new owners.
You're right. We used to do these. It seemed like quite a few of them. We haven't done one in a long time.
Yeah, it's been quite a while. Wow.
How many acre feet is it?
They don't take much. Most of these customers here take about up to 6 acre feet a year, pretty minimal. And we have for these customers, we have a half acre foot minimum required.
Was that the Pulsifer property originally?
No, this is a little bit further east of that area. Yeah, Pulsifer's a little further west. This is right off of Goaty Hill Road, really. It's really very close to Goaty Hill Road. And
I was just looking at this map. That's
yeah.
It looks like it's coming off. Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think he's a little further west.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not part of the Casolas turnout.
No.
So it's in between all that stuff, huh?
If you're actually the map there, if you look there, see that Frank right near ELR there at Elizabeth Lake Road, you'll see the star there. That's where the actual turnout is. And that turnout is shared by 4 parties. There's four different turnout connections there, and one of them being Cherry Milford, which is now being moved over to the Graves family.
You know if they have a well?
Yes, they have a well there on their site, and they have as far as I know, I visited the site back when Milford owned it, probably about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. They had a well there. They had a tank. They have a tank there as well, so for emergency use. So as far as I know, it's running. They get, you know how if you're familiar with those wells out there, they're hit and miss sometimes. Sometimes they're great, sometimes not so great. Yeah, but I know they do have some form of well there. As far as operation, I don't know. I couldn't say specifically.
Okay, yeah, thank you. If there's no other questions or comments from.
Yeah.
So this becomes a recorded document that against the land.
The memorandum of our service agreement, yeah, exactly.
So if they were to sell in the future, escrow would have to double check and make sure with ADAC that they're all paid up. Is that correct?
Yeah, it will show up, and it has. I've gotten calls where a realtor will call and say there's a lien on this property, or there's some note here about Avek. What does this mean? And so I'll have to explain that to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the former owners were up to date on their payments?
Yeah, they're up to date on their payments.
Okay. All right, thank you.
There's a provision in here that they cannot allow anybody else to hook up to that system without our permission, correct?
Yeah, that's not only written in the water service agreement. It's also we added it again, and that's something that Director Dias had asked about during the meeting, to add that into the documents to make sure that that's signed on. So we added that into the assignment of water service agreement.
Okay, thank you. If there's nothing further, motion would be in order.
This is Keith. I'll make a motion that we approve the reassignment of water service agreement in Board Order 8C2.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Director Dias and Donato. If there's no further questions, Madam Secretary?
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato, George Lane.
Yes. Motion carried. Yeah, thank you. Okay, that brings us down to item number 9, General Manager's report. Matt, we'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. I've got just one slide to go through here before I turn it over to Peter Thompson to go through the State Water Project update. But a little closer to home, all the current flows at the AVAC facilities. I'll start on the top left. We have our conventional treatment plants listed there. Happy to report that Quartz Hill Water Treatment Plant is back online after our winter maintenance shutdown. Everything went really good. Kudos to the operation and maintenance staff for getting that done. We're currently flowing 8 million gallons per day, Fort Sill, and we're flowing about 1.25 acre feet at the East Side Water Treatment Plant. We're delivering about 0.35 million gallons per day to the Acton service area via Palmdale Water District. Down below that, we have the recovery of stored imported water. We are recovering a little bit of water from the West Side Water Bank. 1.9 MGD is going to the north system out towards Roseman, Mojave, Edwards, etc. And then about 1.1 million gallons per day going to the LA County Waterworks through the SNP South. All the other locations are currently off. The top right, we have our groundwater recharge.
One question, which is any that has to be treated, or is that go directly to the customer?
Just chlorinated. So that recovered, stored, imported water is just chlorinated before it's delivered to our customers. Groundwater recharge, all the recharge locations are currently off, including the High Desert Water Bank for Metropolitan. We're only recharging 3.4 acre feet per day at the East Side Water Bank. So minimal amount there. If allocation increases, we may see that change throughout the year, but for now, at a 15% allocation, everything is off with the exception of East Side. And then just some notes, Roseman Water Treatment Plant is offline due to the West Feeder being offline due to the leak. And we hope to have some updates at the next meeting on that repair project or recommendations. Mentioned no recharge activity since the first year. And we're continuing with some winter maintenance at all of the facilities in preparation for the high demand during the summer months. So everything is going good. At this point, I'll turn it over to Peter Thompson, who's going to give an update.
All right. Thank you, Matt. So just a quick hit there. Matt stole a little bit of the thunder, and that we did get a bump up from the 10% allocation, so we're at 15%. So that's good. It's also good that we're trending in the right direction. So if you look at this bar chart, you can see how in the first 3 months of the water year, October through December, we were trailing. We were below average, and so that wasn't looking so good. But January and February have been above average, and so we're going back in the right direction. But that's just in the Northern Sierras. We also need to make sure that we're looking good in the Central Sierras too. So hopefully that, as the storms roll in, we increase the precipitation in that area as well. Next slide, Holly. All right. So here we're showing that we're currently at 92% of the average precipitation for this time of year in the Northern Sierras. We're looking good. We'll probably end February at 100% or a little better. So the trend line is correcting itself and hopefully leads to higher allocations. Next slide, please. All right. Also good news, Oroville's at 135% of its historical average. It's 84% of its total capacity, but it's a little misleading. That 84% is 100% of its allowed capacity at this time, because they have to leave a little room in Oroville in order to absorb storm flows to prevent flood damage downstream. So they're keeping it at about that level until we get through the water year, probably into April. Then we'll start seeing the level increase in Oroville. All right, next slide. All right, so
they have so much water there, they should give us Article 21.
Well, that's a good lead into this slide. So there's a lot of water in Oroville, but that water has to make its way through the delta to get to our pumps and then get pumped into San Luis Reservoir. And this slide shows where San Luis is at right now. It's at 68% of its total capacity and only 84% of its historical average. So it's lagging right now. it's lagging for a few reasons. One is we haven't had a good lead in. We had those months where we didn't have a whole lot of water coming down through the Delta, so they weren't able to export much. We've triggered a lot of environmental regulations near the pumps over the last couple of months that have slowed them down. So we're really behind at San Luis in terms of filling it up. So if you want to look at the silver lining, we're probably not going to spill water anytime soon, and we have adequate carryover for this year. But it's when San Luis actually fills that we start getting that Article 21 water.
We'll wait till the snow starts melting.
That's what I'm hoping.
It's got to melt.
Yeah, it's got to melt.
Yeah.
It's got to melt. As Tom's report goes down there at the bottom, AccuWeather says biggest thump of snow to the Sierras so far this season. So we are looking at potentially in the range of 4 to 8 feet of snow in some of those critical areas within the watershed. So that's really, really good news for us going forward. It's really important that we have that snowpack there to melt off and to allow those pumps to continue running throughout the year. What remains to be seen too is how, we don't want to have a really warm season. So if it gets really hot, that'll all melt off real fast. We won't have the opportunity to grab it at the pumps. So we need to get there and we need to stay cold for a little while. But it is looking better right now. And we'll have an update from DWR on March 11th on how we're trending, and look forward to reporting that back to the board. And that's it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pete.
Welcome.
And to wrap up the GM report, just a few upcoming events. Director Mercy is actually at the Aqua DC conference as we speak. The AV Watermaster Board meeting is tomorrow at 10 a.m. here at Avek or via Zoom. And the AV Edge 2024 March luncheon is on Wednesday, March 6th, and that should read 11:30 a.m. So sorry for that typo. And that's all I have to report.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. If there's no further questions, we'll move on to director's reports. And does any director have anything they'd like to report? We'll move on to attorney report.
No reports, George.
Okay, thank you. Request for future agenda items. Okay, then the next one is item, closed session for item, 2 items, A and B. And since a couple of directors are not here, are we ready to do B or not so?
I think I'll leave that to Director Miller.
I think we're ready to move forward.
Okay, so we have 2 items, so motion would be in order to go into closed session.
I move we go in closed session.
Director Donato? Director Miller? Madam Secretary?
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes. That motion carried. We'll take a 5-minute recess.